Hello, everybody. Just wanted to go over some of those cardboard construction techniques that we talked about last week. Just so you guys can go back and reference them if you need to for your cardboard sculpture. Okay. So first things first, I wanted just to go over again scoring your cardboard. So if you wanted to make something with a curved edge, sometimes scoring just that top layer can kind of create an easier curve rather than you can do this. You can take like a pencil and wrap your cardboard around it like so. A lot of times it wants to pop back out, so if you want a looser curl, that's okay. You can get a more controlled curl by creating that scored edge and kind of creating your own curve. So first things first, I'll show you guys when you're cutting cardboard. You can use scissors, but a lot of times, you get halfway through and you have to kind of pull the cardboard, bend it so you can get all the way through. So you might be better off if you have this at home to use either a box cutter or an X-Acto knife. And again, this is practicing scoring. So if you have these tools, this is a lot easier than using scissors. But what you want to do is just cut through the first layer first. You don't want to push all the way through as hard as you can and try to dig your way through the first run. What that often does is you don't get through all the way anyway, and you are more likely to hurt yourself in the process because you're putting so much strength into that cut that it might slip or it might just drag the cardboard. So you're better off scoring. One more reminder, keep your hand away from the path of your blade, and also keep your body off to the side so that when you come this way, if for whatever reason you do get caught and it slips, you're not cutting yourself. So I'm just going to go back into, this was that score. I just kind of cut that first layer of cardboard. And I'm going to go into that same path and go again. I'm going to do that 2 or 3 times until it feels like I got all the way through my cardboard, and then it comes off really easily. Scoring. So you can tell by looking at the cardboard. You can see the corrugation in there, which way the corrugation runs. You can also see it in the lines in your cardboard. So it's easier to cut along that corrugation versus across it. Same for curving it. If you were going to curl it like we did with this, it's easier to curl with the corrugation than against it, because if you're curling against it, it's just going to fold on you instead of curl. So keep that in mind as well. So if I wanted to shape this so it would be more of like a cylinder, what I would do is start scoring just that top layer of cardboard. I'm not going to go all the way through. I just want to get that top single layer of cardboard cut. And you can use a straight edge for this if you want to be more precise. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm going in between. I'm scoring in between where the corrugation is glued to that top layer. You can kind of see these stripes. I'm kind of going in between those. And I didn't go all the way through, so I'm going to go through again. So I'm just going to kind of randomly do this just to show you guys real quick. Of course, the closer together your scoring is, the tighter the curve is going to be. So see, I went a little longer with this one. Okay. So over here, I did these kind of a longer distance between my scores. So I've got a wider curve, and then these scores are much closer together. So of course my curve is going to be a little tighter. Okay. So you can kind of see how that works. It also makes for kind of nice movement if you're looking for something to move. And this is another example of that, as well as this one. So if you're making, like a student wanted to make a camera, so like making the body of the camera with those kind of curved edges instead of the sharp corner. I just showed her how you would score those edges so that they curve, and so it's not just another box, it's got those curved edges. All right, so, and that's a good way, if you're doing one of those giant heads out of cardboard and you're using the box as your template, you can, and I think I showed this in class, so this was a box, and what I did was, instead of having this sharp corner, I don't know if I can get this in the camera here, instead of having this sharp corner, I ended up taking the corner and then scoring alongside that corner, so I get a curved corner instead of a sharp corner. So instead of it looking like this, it's going to have a more curved edge. And so I can round out the box to use for the shape of a head. So to have like the rounded edges instead of having that boxy shape. All right, so the next one was the flange. So finding a tube of some sort, you can even make a tube. If you need chipboard, that works really well for making your own. So chipboard, if you remember, is what we use for our paper sculpture. It curves very easily, so you could easily make your own tube, just glue it, and then use it for your flange. But most of you have paper towel at home or toilet paper rolls that you can just use. So what I did was I marked along the edge of the tube lines. They should all come to a relatively same distance. So you're going to cut, to the same distance. This was about 1/2 inch in. And what I did is I took my scissors and I just simply cut along here all the way around the tube. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be exact. And then it sits flat on the surface. So if I wanted to glue it to a piece of cardboard, it would sit flat instead of doing a circle of glue and trying to balance this and get it just right. This helps keep it really sturdy and glued really solid. So you can put the flange on top of the cardboard, or you can do what I did here, which was I traced the circle by doing, turning upside down, get the right size, and then you can put the tube through, and then that disguises that flange. You don't see it on the surface. So again, if you're doing that camera project, this looks like the lens of a camera, but you don't see those flanges. The flanges are on the other side. You would glue these down on here, which actually these also make kind of an interesting pattern or shape themselves. So if you wanted to do, this almost looks like eyelashes, or it could become a pattern or something. This is kind of an interesting look as well. About tabs, which is what this slot was for. And I believe something that would fit in there. I also made this little hand. So if you wanted to make something that was more of like a puppet show, or something that moved, think about how things can fit into one another. But if we're going to do, let me show you some. The tab and slot, and then I'll show you the tabs. All right, so I'm gonna score again, just cutting some cardboard here. So we can go all the way through, so I have to run it through one more time here. Okay. So let's say I wanted this to sit flat on this surface. I wanted it to be perpendicular, right? It would be much more difficult to put a bead of glue or a line of glue here and to set that there and make sure it was nice and sturdy. So there's two ways to do this. You can either make tabs, which you could do. I'm just going to cut, you can see I cut 2 lines there. Just going to make sure it goes all the way through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it the opposite directions. So these are our tabs, okay? You can set it on there and just glue those to the surface so it's much more sturdy. You're gonna glue the bottom of these and the bottom of this, and then it would sit flat on there and be much sturdier. Another way to do that and also make it a little bit sturdier than this even, is to do something like this where you cut the slot. And I would cut this to, this length. This is just for an example. You can slide this through and then glue the tabs on the underside there. Or if you didn't have the tabs, you could just glue it all on one side and just fold that bottom piece. Like if I wanted this hand to be, I might score the hand just to fold it. So it's got that bend. And then what I would do is put the hand through. And then I would taper glue that on the underside there. So again, the tab in the slot, you would just glue this underneath here. Okay, so it sits perpendicular with the board and stands up nice and straight. So we got tabs, we got tab and slot. Another thing you can do, and this is good for creating like a sturdy stand for something or a cross. So if something needs something to kind of like, structurally stand within itself, I can use scissors for this too. So this is like the slot. And what we're going to do, sorry, that's my phone. What you can do is just, so you can see I've got a cut here and a cut here, and they're about the same length. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them so they kind of lock into one another. And you'll see this in packaging a lot, in boxes. It can separate things. It can create a lot of sturdiness if something has to sit on top of it. And it can also be used for like creating pattern. So that's slots. Let's see, we've got brass fasteners. So if you needed something that needed to move, I've got these brass fasteners that you guys can use. Just ask me and I will send some your way. They're pretty long. You can always cut them down with scissors if you need to, or just bend them until they break. If these tabs on here, you would call these like the legs on the brass fastener, are too long. But let's say I wanted to put a couple of pieces of cardboard together and have it move like this. So I just need one brass fastener. Let's see, I'm just going to cut out some random shapes here. Okay, and then what I want to do is to create a hole where my brass fastener will go, and then I can stick the brass fastener through it, and then these pieces will stay together and also be able to move if you want them to. So you can use scissors, you can use your X-Acto knife, whatever works best, whatever you have available. Actually, I think scissors are better because they're a little bit sturdier than the thin blade of the X-Acto knife. And a little less sharp, so you're less likely to hurt yourself. So I'm just going to line it up so I can kind of tell where that hole should be. I'm going to mark it. And again, be careful with scissors and blades. Make sure you're not getting your fingers in front of that blade unintentionally. So again, I just marked it. Slowly and carefully, kind of drill a hole with my scissor. All right, so I'm going to line these up. Take the legs, make sure those are pushed together, and put them through each of the pieces, and then you would just fold these to the side. So if I attach this to a different piece, like this one here, I can disguise the legs of the brass fastener on the underside of another piece of cardboard here. So what I did is I just folded them. They came in straight. I just fold them flat so they stay in there. And then I've got this piece that moves now. You can do lots of things with moving pieces. That would be interesting. Another thing is creating a hinge of some sort using either string or wire. This one I used with wire. Similar to making the holes for the brass fastener, I just put these two pieces of cardboard together. I would first make the holes in the first piece, and then I would mark it on the second piece by lining them up, poking a hole through it, and then making the holes on the other piece, and then just simply sewing it together with wire or string. And so this can make something, again, that kind of flaps, or it can be a nice way to make like a door or a window, or maybe you just need to attach two edges together, and this is just the simplest way to do it. So that's another option. One other thing I wanted to go over, the last thing for this video, is using the corrugation as texture. So when you have a corrugated piece of cardboard, you can see like the wavy piece inside of there. You've got your single wall of cardboard here, you've got the corrugation on the inside, and then another single wall of cardboard. So you can use that as texture. So let's say, I'm just going to cut this piece off completely here. So it actually kind of is nice to use as pattern on its own. So you can see it's kind of like that little zigzaggy. So if you layered those up, that would create some kind of interesting textures if you wanted to. So if I lined these up, a couple of times and made a bunch of these all together, you'd see how that could create some texture on a piece. Another thing you can do is simply taking away the first layer of the single wall of the cardboard. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to carve a triangle here into that top layer of corrugation, not going all the way through. Remember, I'm scoring, so I'm not cutting all the way through. I just want that top layer of cardboard. So I scored that triangle in there. And then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife just to kind of like pry it up. Sometimes it helps to take like a damp sponge or a rag and just simply like pressing it on there. Don't get it really wet because it'll start to warp, but just a little bit of moisture on top can kind of loosen that glue and help pull it up. Or you can just simply pull it up and come back in, kind of clean up the extra cardboard that stayed stuck on there. So pull this up. Let's start from this corner. That'll be easier. Sometimes trying from a different angle is easier too. All right, so now I've got that as a texture on my piece. Then you can also do, kind of like the examples I showed. I just made these little V's out of. I just scored the little V's. Just into that top layer of cardboard, and then if you kind of pull that up, you can kind of create fur type texture or like scales, whatever you're trying to go for. If you're going for scales, I would be more purposeful with the placement, so I'd try to like layer them so that's more of a pattern. Something like this. Okay, so that's kind of like a scale. Another thing you can do is like eyelashes, or just long curls, right? So if you're doing something kind of furry, like some sort of creature with fur, kind of cut these long pieces, and then you can curl them like we did with the other piece. So if you did like a lot of these kind of longer pieces, you could create something that looks like it's kind of furry. But experiment with it, see what you come up with. These are all just things that I've tried, but there are many, many more things you can try that might be even better or different. I would like to learn, do different things, and we can learn from each other. So just kind of looking at different ways to texturize the surface of the cardboard. I think that's all I got. If you have any questions, let me know. So again, just got a bunch of different techniques. If you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. If you need more cardboard, I've got piles. If you need more chipboard, if you like the chipboard better than the regular cardboard, I can get you some of that too. So just let me know.